Hey, you guys, thanks for joining us on this beautiful day. I am here all the way in Bali, Indonesia, where I am a digital dance educator and I'm certified acrobatic arts and contortion teacher. And we have Miss Lovely Treshawn Brown. She can introduce herself.
Hello. Hi, I'm Treshawn Brown. I am the owner and technique coach for TLC Dance Experience, and I'm all the way in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Nice. So, you guys, you're in for a treat today because we're going to talk about all aspects of virtual dance training. And we're going to share our story basically how when COVID happened and we had to transition, we had to pivot really quickly, put things into place, pros and cons. And what are we doing with that virtual side today? Like, is it effective? Is it not? Is it working? So we're gonna get right into it. So again, I am Lonnie. I'm the owner of the Dynasty Institute, and I run a virtual acro program. So for me, I did have a dance studio back home in DC. It was called Dynasty Arts and Movement at the time. I was very successful in it, but I suffered a lot of challenges from my mental health and just didn't realize the things that came with being a dance owner. I just love teaching and I thought, oh, well, let me open up a studio. And I found quickly that that wasn't my lane. So I shifted and started renting space from one of my dance sisters, Dance Dimensions. So that's where I had been for, I think, the last 4 years before COVID. And then when COVID hit, voila, it shifted, it pivoted. So I immediately got into action because I was always familiar with Zoom. That's how I interact with my business coaches. So I already had an account. So instantly the next day, you guys, I transitioned to virtual. So that's how virtual started for me.
I feel like our stories are similar. I had my own dance studio. Was going well, but just with everything else, dealing with a mom who had dementia, new baby, it was just, and I have a full time career, right? In addition to owning a studio. So it was just a lot on me mentally. So, same as you, I decided, hey, let's try something different. And I went and I transitioned to another studio where I helped direct and manage their competition team. So I did that for a long time. And then after a while, I was just like, you know what? It's just time for me to kind of take a break. So this is before COVID hit, and I was like, I just need a break. I need to focus on my daughter who wants to dance. I don't need to be mom and dance teacher. I just want a break. So about 6 years ago, I said, let me just pause from it. Well, people didn't want me to pause, right? They kept calling me, oh, can you just do some private? So I got into face to face privates, here and there for people that wanted it. And then me, so say retiring, went back to full time, but I was just doing face to face privates. And then COVID hit, right? And just like you, I had to pivot real quickly. People still wanted their privates. They didn't want their kids to just sit at home and do nothing. So I said, well, I mean, I know how to teach. So let's jump on this thing for Zoom. I did not have a Zoom account. I got a Zoom account and the rest is history, right? So now I'm hybrid. So I do both Zoom sessions virtually and still face to face for those that live here in the Charlotte area.
Oh, wow. Okay. Awesome. 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 Okay. So let's now pivot and get into now it has happened. We're on Zoom. It is live. We're in the midst of the pandemic. That's what I call it. And it's like, wow, okay, we're doing it. Lucky for me, what really helped me out was I am under the certification program of acrobatic arts. So, you guys, if you haven't heard of acrobatic arts, it's an international acrobatic and contortion curriculum, and you are certified internationally. They jumped into place so quick with the training and the resources for their teachers and staff. It was amazing. So every workshop that they gave, I registered for it. They showed us how to play games with the kids to keep the fun going virtually. They showed us the progression ladder, or say if you're teaching aerial, making sure that you're starting from the basics of the basic and working up with which they call a progression ladder. So the more training I kept taking helped me to really, really make sure that my kids was not only doing quality stuff, but safety. Because that was the biggest concern for acro, for my clientele was how are these kids going to be flipping and contorting? Don't you need to spot them? Don't you need? And again, I understood the concern. That was the reason why I took more of the classes in acrobatic arts, provided us with these tools and resources. So for me, it really helped to navigate the way I was teaching. So even though I taught well, I'm a great teacher, you never stop learning. And I wanted to know even more because, again, I never taught online. This was all new to me. So that's the component to now being in the midst that helped me to navigate now running my classes.
Yeah, and for me, right, acro is a little different than dance. I feel like there's a lot of acro certification programs. Dance is a little bit different. So for me, growing up, constant training, always wanted to learn new things. At my studio, when I opened it, I started a class called TLC, Turns, Leaps, and Conditioning, right? So for a few years as I had my studio, it was a class that was very popular. Everybody wanted to sign up for it. And then when I moved over and transitioned to another studio, I brought that program with me. People loved it. And then when they reached out to me again, for privates, that's the main thing they wanted. So when COVID hit, light bulb went on and I was like, well, you know what? Everyone loves this program. Let me kind of like just have that as my main focus, just to kind of like draw people in. Cause I do everything, right? But that was like my thing to draw people in. So that's how the name TLC Dance Experience came about. For me, like I said, we don't really have many certifications for dance, but I really follow a lot of international programs. So I took the training program for radar technique. I took all of their modules. I love how she works with the kids. Her teaching style is a little similar to me because I like to break things up, which I think what works well for me when I'm teaching. And then also I don't know if you want to really call it a certification, but pirouette surgery. It's another international company. You have to follow a few modules and they certify your studio for, so I use that as part of my curriculum. But because I feel like, I don't know, based on the states, is international just is a different way they train harder. So I really like a lot of the international programs. I follow a lot of the international people. So I'm constantly like learning, taking classes here and there, but there's really no certification for what we do. So my training is just kind of built on what I've learned, what I've seen, classes I've taken. But I feel that like acro, because every time I hear your sessions, right, it makes me giggle, right? Because you're always talking about the progressions. But that's how I work with my turns and leaps, right? I don't just say, hey, we're gonna learn this leap today, right? I say, this is where we're gonna start, and eventually it builds up and they go, oh wait, I got here already. And I'm like, yes, because it's because of the progressions you got there so quickly, right? So, I think the programs are similar, even though we're doing two different things.
Yeah. And you touched on something that I always talk about is the international level, right? One of the reasons why I decided to do acrobatic arts because it was international. I find that the international programs are more high standard, top tier. When you see their students, even before you even knew about the curriculums, when you would see the international dancers, on YouTube or on social media, you always like, oh my God, look at the dancers from the UK, the dancers from Australia, Canada. the technique was just beyond flawless. So that's what made me say, oh no, if I want to get trained, it has to be on the international level. I need my students to have this top tier training. And then when I even took it a step further and got the Alexa flexibility, she's based in the UK. Program is amazing, amazing. Because she did a lot of Cirque du Soleil stuff. So I was like, okay, I need to bring those stretching methods to my program. So yeah, that's big stuff that you know recognize that the international level is just so it's just different.
So
It's
different.
just
It's
different.
different. Yes.
They don't
I mean,
play about those
they
progressions.
they don't play about it at all. They really what I like, and I'm a big proponent of that. I'm very big on technique, right? So I'll tell someone really quickly. I don't care that you just spun around, and I call it a spin, right? Not a turn. I don't care that you spun around 6 times if your foot was flat, knee was bent. That's not a turn to me, right? Like you
Okay.
need all the technique there, right? So I feel like the international really focuses on the technique. They're more structured, right? Everyone uh looks the same, is doing it the same way. It's totally different.
It's totally
Yeah.
different. You know, so that's good stuff. So now you guys, we're going to transition into talking about now that it's happened, now you know the methods that helped us to make online work. Let's kind of shift into some of the feedback that we probably hear from our parents and our clients, our students that we work with, because a lot of them did not think that this was going to work. They didn't think that this was going to be a forever thing. They more kind of came in it maybe just like us, like, oh, this just, something to do until we get back in person. And then something clicked, something just clicked for them and they're like, hold on, I'm able to see and hear what is being done. Because, most of the time in the studios, right? You drop off, the parents drop off and they leave. So they don't know how to help the kid at all. They don't know what they're struggling with. And I know for me, that has been one of the biggest feedback is just being able to see and hear what's happening, and then the kid is in a comfortable environment because it's their environment. And one of the things I've really noticed is my students, when I was in person, I noticed a lot of people would look to each other for confirmation when doing something. Even though I'm right there teaching it, they always felt the need to second guess themselves and look at the person next to them. However, with virtual, you're I'm on the screen. Yes, there are multiple kids in my program, but they don't come to the screen to swipe to see, let me see if Melanie doing it okay. Let me see if Julie, they don't do it. So it helps
Right.
them to reassure them to think on their own and be secure and confident to say, I heard the instruction. Let me process it. If I need help, I'll say I need help without relying on the person, the right or the left of me.
I feel like the online training, it did a few things, right? It boosts confidence, right? Because again, you're not
Mhm.
really comparing yourself to everyone else. I always say this, it's making you more self-aware of, oh, wait, I do feel it now. Because before, you just kind of you're relying on other people or the mirror versus saying, wait, I do feel what she's saying. Let me
Mhm.
let me move that. So it's making you more self-aware and more body conscious on how to shift, how to move. So I think it helped enhance kids a little bit more, right? I don't know about you, but I get the feedback from parents like, oh, she grew so quickly, right?
That's
Like,
always the case. They
right,
always say,
they're in
"Oh
the
my God."
studio for a whole year and they see a little bit of progress, right? But they're with us for a short amount of time and they go, oh, but they got so much progression quickly, right?
Quickly, because again, like you said, the confidence, they're able to really, really rely on self and hear. A lot of times it's hard to follow directions in the in person. There's a lot going on. You got the class next to you, that's you can maybe hear the teacher over that's next, or the kids are chattering a little bit more. None of that. It's
Right.
focus, focus, focus. But I get that all the time. My parents are like, hold on, she's been taking acro at her studio almost 3 years and haven't learned half of this stuff
Right.
at
Right.
all. Like the way you're breaking it down step by step, no. And then a lot of times what I hear is the fact that I have all my students moving, working in their progression versus in person. You would have to wait until that person went down the
Yes.
mat. The teacher
Right.
spent, 10 minutes with one student, and the rest of the kids are just sitting there not working in their progression because they're waiting for you to finish helping the other kid. And it's
Right.
like,
Right.
no, we're not doing that. So
Correct.
it's definitely been a blessing. And then also my students they're eligible to sit for the acrobatic exam. So I'm glad I'm able to offer that because in person, you would have to, as their certified teacher, would have to now pay for the acrobatic arts staff members who conduct the exam to come to your studio. So that was travel fee, hotel fee, the participation of each student fee to come to get this. So a lot of studios couldn't participate in the
Yeah.
exam. So now they do it virtually, and they decided to keep the virtual because it became so popular for them. And it sets the tone because now that my students get to do it and when they get on, it's like, oh wow, Miss Lonnie, we're serious about this. You gotta hop on 10 minutes early or you're late.
Right. Right. Right.
The structure of the uniform and how organized the test is ran, even though it's virtual, they didn't slack off and say, well, it's virtual. We'll just, when the kids come on.
Right.
No, it is very structured. It almost literally feel like the acrobatic arts staff came inside the studio.
Right. 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 But I do, right? I feel like too, being online, it helps with things like time management, right? Because before you used to have kids might come 15 minutes late, they just stroll in. If you're not on the Zoom, right, you're not on it, right? Or if you're coming late, I have another private behind you, so I can't let the class linger on for a few minutes, right? So it tells you have to be on by a certain time so we can end at a certain time, you know. So it shows you that time is valuable, because if you don't come on, well, then you have missed your spot, you know.
You missed your spot. I know, like for myself, Zoom have that amazing option called lock meeting. So my meeting is locked after 5 minutes of the class started, but that was my policy in person. But the good thing that I like about it was in person, if people came late, they're knocking on my door, they're being distractive. The kid come in still upset, they're crying. So it was a lot of dramatics, lot of
Right.
dramatics. I don't get the dramatics because I don't see you because you can't come in. There's no
Yeah.
knocking on the door. There's no interruptions. There's none of that. So I like the beauty of that. And I like the fact that I don't get all of the distractions because in person, love my parents to death, but they would stop me. They would want to chat before class. I'm trying to start. Then this kid coming up saying, so it was a lot of things that the time went past. Or I would lose almost 10 minutes with the distractions.
Right. 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 Yeah, so now it's more in, out, and for me, what you probably do with having an acrobatic arts is your program, but I give homework, I send it after, so it's not much chitting chatting I have to do before or after the class. I set the stamps, before you come in my class, make sure you have your ankle weights on, make sure, everything. So when I turn on the Zoom, we start, right.
That's it right there. I say,
Yeah.
where's your stuff at? They know when they arrive on Zoom, the ankle weights are already on. Your yoga blocks is
Yoga
in
blocks are
eye
close by.
distance. It's in
Yeah.
eyesight. Your chair, your handstand chair is where you can reach it. Your bottle of water is near you. Because when it's time that I put the timer on and says break time, you don't leave the
right,
classroom. So, because I tell them they're still in class.
right,
You
right.
so your mindset is still in class. There's no distractions. I know y'all love y'all pets, but here's the thing. Little Whiskers cannot be walking
Right,
past, you know.
right.
Little
Right,
Milo cannot be in the back going under you in the bridge. Put Milo
right, right,
away. Put him
right,
away.
right,
Because they love
right.
all that. And I said, you
Yes,
got to ask yourself, would you bring your cat or dog in person, right? You
right.
wouldn't. And it's the same thing educating the parents, right? Because they can get a little lax and, walk past the screen
Fast,
or come up to the screen and say stuff. I say, oh, no, we don't do that. They're in class.
right,
So
right. Yeah.
teaching them still. So that can kind of be a con.
Well, that's what I was just
Once
about to
you,
say. Those
yeah,
are the things you have to deal with, the distractions or just family members, right, in the house might be talking in the background when you're there. So those are the things that I guess is a con to teaching virtually, but it's not a huge hindrance, right? Once you
no.
kind of correct it the first time, it's over,
It's kind of over. So you
Right.
guys, yep. So we're shifting right into the cons of it, right? And that brings us to it. So we have, your cons where some distractions in the household. I know one of the cons that I kind of run into, not that much like before when COVID hit, is the Wi-Fi issue. So
Yes.
you'll have the, connection. Oh, Miss Lonnie, she's logging on. We, is updating. That has happened to
Right.
me with Zoom, where you decide you want to update when I'm about to log on.
Right.
So
Yes. Yes.
that can be a con. I have that happen to you a lot.
Yes, so I've had the lagging. Now, again, right? Everything is a lesson learned. So I usually have a list, like when I have take on a new private, and I'll say, one, make sure they have the right amount of space. Check your Wi-Fi. Maybe you need to get your Wi-Fi upgraded if this is something that you want to take on. Things like that. And then one time I had actually recently we had a bad storm come in. I went to get on for a private and our lights went out. So that's no Wi-Fi. I tried to pivot and do it from my phone, right? Because you can do it from your phone, your
Yeah.
laptop, wherever. But in a storm, right, your connectivity via your phone was a little shaky. So though, you run into those, but it's not a everyday thing. And you just have to, work with it,
And
right?
you work with it and pivot
Right,
and keep it
right.
moving. Another con that I would say, again, going back to the distractions, that sometimes parents think that it's supposed to be less because it's virtual, meaning the expectations. I hold a huge expectation, just like yourself, where again, the way they enter the classroom. Are you in dress code? I'm big about no t-shirts because they're acro, they're flipping up and down. So I've had parents to say, well, this is all she got. And I'm like, that's not my expectations. That's not my required dress code. With just virtual, I've heard that. And I'm like, no, are you saying it's just the format? No, the impact doesn't change, sweetie.
Right,
Like,
right.
just because it's a different format doesn't mean that the expectations are lower. That's not the way I run my program. So I have come into that not frequently. I don't have those issues as much as I did when I first started, but that just keep holding the expectations and getting
Yes.
them to understand that this is it.
Yes, and for me, I'm more so on my program is I want to say maybe 75% conditioning, stretching,
Mm,
flexibility because I feel like those things are important aspects to improve on them on their turns and leaps, right? So in
mhm.
order to get that, right, I ask parents to purchase a lot of tools they probably wouldn't purchase if they were in a studio setting, right? A Bosu ball. And make sure you have your yoga blocks, your ankle weights. Do you have a dip bar, right? And they're looking at me like, you want? I'm like, no, you don't have to purchase it all, but if you do, it makes the program more effective. I can do more things with your child. So it took some getting used to, right? But then when parents see, like, oh, now my child has all this strength, so now they can power their legs up and get it, and then so their leaps here, they're way up here,
Yeah.
right? So then they go, okay, now I see why, right?
Yeah.
And then it's not more so the dress code, but it's just like the area for me. If I'm doing turns and leaps, I need the kids to have enough space, right? Or the proper
Yes.
floor, right? Because it's hard to turn on carpet.
Oh, yeah.
So I always try to stress, like, I'll work with you, but they're not gonna progress like they need to if they're turning on carpet versus a hard surface. So I try to like provide different products they can use. Well, I don't know if you can see, but like I have a Marley behind me, and then I have like a dots dance. I tell people like, if you have the space and the money, you can get a travel Marley floor, or you can get the dot where they could turn on. So it's just them saying, "Wow, I have to purchase all this," but I'm like, again, you're not in a studio setting, so you're making the studio at your home, and that's what we need to be
Yeah.
successful. You know,
Yeah, and that's kind of to making here with Acro is making sure they have the space and the flooring because they'll use yoga mats. I try to use thin so they can get used to being on a much thinner so they can transition those skills over to the floor without the bouncy and all of that. Yeah. So is this virtual has definitely been amazing. And it's another thing I wanted to touch on is the balance of life. I know for me, I get to travel more. And I remember when I first took my kids to Jamaica and they seen all the palm trees and stuff like that behind and how excited they were. But it's like, wow, like I really get to enjoy my life a little bit more because of now transitioning over from being an in-person dance educator to now being a digital dance educator and showing the world that it can be done and still be successful. Right. So now you guys, I'm in Bali. And I'll be probably making my way over to Thailand and now being able to do some in person for summer as a tour, but it feels good and it actually helps with my mental health and being able to teach better is like, wow, like my mind is much clearer. I can focus on my lesson planning more. I can add even more engaging stuff for the kids virtually because I'm working on a few things now. And it's like, overall, this virtual has been the best thing that God has presented. Like, so thus far, like I literally asked them, advance my territory, and boom,
right?
boom, COVID's here. Bam, here we go. You're not gonna have to plan that 10 city tour and spend all of this money and do all of it. Like you're gonna be the black acro teacher in this field that's showing them that it can be done virtually, but with excellence and safety. And I'm like, yes,
Right.
we did that.
Well,
We
I'm not doing all the traveling like you or you're doing. I'm jealous. But I do feel like this is offering me up a lot of flexibility, right? I have a daughter that dances and she's a competitive dancer, so we travel a lot. So right. So I don't have to go, well, I can't do privates today, right? We have to leave this weekend and go out of town. I don't have to say that. Well, when she's dancing all day, I can sit in front of a computer. I could be in my hotel room or I could be in the lobby of some convention, right? While she's
yeah.
taking a dance class, it doesn't matter, right? So I really do enjoy. Like I said, I do hybrid. I just give you one day of my schedule. So on Thursdays, I do face to face privates, and I have booked a virtual private from 7 to 8. Right, I finished my face to face at 6:30. 30 minutes for me to get home to do my virtual at 7. So my whole day was planned. That's my Thursday, right? And then realized that my daughter finishes dance on Thursday at 8 o'clock, right? So like, what am I doing? I can't be in two places at one time. Um, you know what? I leave my face to face. I go to her studio. I do my 7 to 8 from her studio. When she gets out, I'm done, right? So I wouldn't have been able to do that if I was not doing virtual, right? So it works out. So I mean, I tell any anyone that's going to be listening to this, like if you're trying to expand what you're doing, if you're looking for some flexibility, I mean, virtual is where it is. If you think you have the ability to teach and break things down for kids, that's virtual really helps me.
It helps in so many ways. And you guys, those again who will be watching this, you've been on a fence and you've been saying, like, God, just spare me more time. I need more freedom of my time. I'm tired of working at this studio and then got to make it to this studio, or just being able to build your clientele and not be restricted to just your zip code, you know, or just being in that place where there's studios that says, hey, you work for me and you can't work at no other studio. People go through that too, where you have to sign a disclosure form, a
Yes.
NDA that says you can't work this many distance. Guess what?
Right.
We're virtual. There's no limits. There's no boundaries. There's no, oh, you can't do this and you can't. No, you guys teach for some studios virtual. Their students log in the other room and I teach the acro. So this is not just private lessons or running your own program. You can collab and do partnerships, do workshops virtual. People, a lot of the
Yes.
acrobatic arts people still do a lot of virtual, like, conventions for people. It is still being done. It did not move away just because COVID no, people
I
are
actually think
embracing
it's
it.
growing. Yeah, I actually think it's growing. Like if you really get on social media, whatever you're teaching, right? Whether it's acro, whether it's dance, whatever, right? If you really
Acting,
go out,
anything.
yes, if you go out there and look, there's so many more people getting into the virtual, so many more, right? Because again, it is helping you expand your territory. I wanted to do this because I wanted to be on my own time, right? Just doing the face to face. But then I was like, well, now I can expand, touch more people and states I would even think I would be teaching, right? Students in,
Yeah,
but still have my flexibility, right? I don't have to worry about a studio saying, no, you come in every Tuesday at 5 o'clock. Yes, I do have a set schedule for my privates, but if I didn't want to do it that day, I could go, hey, on October, whatever, I won't be doing any privates that day, right? Because
yeah,
it's me, it's my schedule. So
yeah. It's amazing, you guys. So again, embrace virtual, even from the parents' perspective. If you've been on a fence, you've been looking for an acro teacher, maybe you don't have it, it's not accessible in your area. Acro is a hard genre to teach and also to find a qualified instructor. In our certification group, there's always a hiring ad. Somebody's looking for an acro teacher. Every day I get alerts from acrobatic arts saying, hey, this person is looking for an acro teacher in your area. It's hard. So if you can find a qualified teacher that is virtual and they possess the credentials, the education, sign your child up. And if your child needs more conditioning and technique and turns and leaps, guess what? You have a whole amazing educator right here. Like, come on,
so
you
look us
guys,
up. Look us
look us
up.
up. So let them know how they can follow you, and I'll let them know how they can follow me.
Yes, so you can follow me on Instagram at TLC Dance Experience. I also have a Facebook group. It is a closed group because I do have a lot of parents that rather keep their child's supplemental training to themselves. So it's a closed group, but you still can find me on Facebook at the TLC Dance Experience.
Nice. And you guys, you can find me at the Dynasty Institute. So my company is the Dynasty Institute, but on Instagram it's just Dynasty Institute. Or you can go on my website, thedynastyinstitute.com. So that is the way you can find me, and on Facebook, same thing. So you guys, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to get this information out there to you and do this amazing interview so you can hear not just from myself, but from an amazing dance educator who is doing greatness in the community and showing that Black excellence exists, that we are educators of color that we are doing our thing and we believe in getting our kids to the next level. So thank you so much.
Bye.